What's up, guys? My name is William Dauria, and here on this channel we're here to discuss on personal finance and how to achieve your financial freedom early. I did so at 32, and you can do so as well. This is my story. My parents divorced early when I was young. I was in grade school still. And from then on, I had to grow up in separate families, obviously. But we went from one house to another house. My mom, having lived in a one-bedroom apartment with me and my brother, was very difficult on those 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. There's 3 people living in a one-bedroom apartment. And then on the other hand, my dad lived in a very middle-class home, a very everyday middle-class home, maybe even the upper middle class, some would consider. And so I've had the fortunate ability to recognize what it's like to be on one end of the spectrum and on the other end of the spectrum. My mom soon got on her feet after that, and she wasn't in a one-bedroom apartment forever. She soon growed into a middle-class home, and now she lives in an upper-class home as well. And the reason I tell you this is because I grew up literally going from a one-bedroom apartment with 3 people in it to a multi-million-dollar house and everything in between. And I would like to absolutely share my story on how I achieved my personal independent freedom, financial freedom by the age 32, my story, and I'm hoping that it'll inspire you as well to maybe bring that idea to the table. Maybe, hey, I've been talking about this for a long time, me and my buddy, maybe getting together, making something happen, because it's not going to happen on its own. It's not going to do it all by itself. You have to put in the work. It's not easy. Anybody that tells you it's easy is lying. And that's just the cold, hard truth. Starting in middle school, I noticed my grades were not near as good as all my peers. Matter of fact, they were terrible. Like C minuses, B's if I'm lucky, and A's in like PE because, well, I was pretty good at PE. And I took summer school pretty much from middle school on through high school, a majority of the years. And it was something that I had to get used to. It was almost the norm. Everybody else was having fun during the summer, and well, I was doing summer school. I met some great friends. Matter of fact, I met Hunter, which I consider to be one of my best friends because we were in summer school together. So it's not always a bad thing, at least the way I looked at it as well. I went into high school, and then I joined JROTC, Junior Recruit Officer Training Corps. It was for the Army. And I did 4 years of that, and I loved it. I excelled in the rifle competition, the physical fitness competition, the drill team, the marching aspect of it. And I did really, really well. So what I did was at just 17 years old, just 17, right after 9/11 happened, I joined the Army because I wanted to go fight for my country. And I did. And now my summers, that summer I could not go to summer school. I had to really make my grades count, and I had to tell my teachers, do not fail me. I joined the Army. I'm can't please. I'll do anything. Give me a 70.0, please. And they did, luckily, right? And so I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Was my first basic. I'm dual AIT'd, and which is I have 2 jobs in the military basically. I went first as a combat medic, and then I came back around, went through basic again at Fort Benning, Georgia. And I went through as 11 Charlie, indirect infantryman. It's basically an infantryman that does mortars as well. And went overseas 3 times. I did presidential security for the Romanian president overseas. And then I went to Egypt and did a little bit of tower duty over there and remote site stuff and, you know, security for helicopters landing, that kind of stuff. And it was kind of fun. One cool little thing about it is the seas. We were on the Red Sea border. You could see Saudi Arabia. And we were not considered a combat zone, but the ocean, literally the ocean waters were. So as long as you went swimming in the ocean 1 day a month, you get hazard duty pay, right? So if you went swimming, you made like an extra $300 that day. So Everybody went swimming every month there in the ocean, the Red Sea. Very salty, I might add. While I was there, I kind of had an idea of what I wanted to do. I really, really, really like motorcycles, sport bikes in general. And I kind of like the concept of eBay as well. So while I was overseas, I took advantage of reading the books that I had brought. At the time, they were thick eBay books on literally how eBay was ran at the time. The whole book is basically disregarded now because everything has changed since I've learned that. But I really wanted to learn the aspect of owning my own business, and selling on eBay I thought was a good end to the business. So I studied eBay. I learned it when I got back. I piddled around with stuff I had around the house, you know, just selling this, selling that, see if it kind of works, concept. And it worked. And I was selling, and I was doing very well. When I say very well, I mean, it was working. I wasn't doing very well. It wasn't a business at all by any means. But everything I was listing with my descriptions, for the most part, I was selling, 60% of the stuff I was listing, which is great, considering it was just a bunch of stuff. And so I went through a bunch of different odd jobs. I worked at McDonald's. I worked at a Costco pushing carts, and I worked at a Chinese restaurant, pizza place, a construction company. You kind of get the idea. I was kind of bouncing around everywhere. Not that I wanted to bounce around, but it's just kind of where life was kind of pulling you at the time, And then I had my chance to be a 50 cal gunner in Iraq on convoy escorts, and of course I took the job. I absolutely wanted to do that. That's what I signed up for. That's what I really wanted to do. So I went to Iraq and spent about a year total there. But in the middle, approximately in the middle, maybe a little bit later, I went on leave, which is your 2 weeks back home. This is where everything changed. So when I was on leave, I was riding my motorcycle and I was in the parking lot riding wheelies, learning how to ride wheelies, right? What do you think happened? I'll let you guess. Yeah, you're right. I crashed it. And I didn't just crash it. I flipped it over backwards and broke it in half. My bad. And so I'm standing there with more of a bruised ego than anything, looking at my bike, and it's broken in half. And I'm like, how am I going to get this thing home? Because it's broken in half, you know what I mean? I need somebody with a truck, and I don't know a whole lot of people with a truck right now, so I ended up getting somebody with a truck. I ended up thinking, and so the next day, right, I know you're thinking, where's this going, all right? The next day, I put, need this and this and this for my bike, you know how it goes, and I went on Craigslist, and I was looking, and I said, hey, somebody locally, because at the time I was thinking, I want to get this thing fixed now, I'm only in town for so long, and I found a guy, we'll call him D, and he wrote me back, said, hey, I've got this part and this part and this part, and very cheap. And I was like, okay, cool. Where do you live? When can I meet you? And I met him at the house the next day. He opened up his garage. It was a mecca of motorcycle parts. And it was shelved and binned and numbered, and everything was organized and looked perfect to me. And I just stood back and I was in awe, and I said, what do you do for a living? And he says, I buy wrecked bikes at auction, I part them out and sell them on eBay. And a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, no freaking way. You do this for a living? And this guy's house was nice by anybody's standards. About 3,000 square foot, 4-bedroom, brand new build. And get this, he's only lived there a handful of years. It's already paid off because of this business. That's how good this business can be if you hustle it right. So I said, when I get back from leave, because I still had to go back to Iraq and finish my tour, when I get back from leave, me and you are going to talk, right? So I got his information down, and when I got back, I did just that. I came back to him, and I would work underneath him, and I would buy bikes, and I would fix them up, and then I would sell them. And I was doing this at the time in my dad's backyard, because I had just got back from Iraq. And I was a very young kid, so I didn't have a house. I didn't even have an apartment. Everything was in storage. So my dad was letting me live with him for a short while I got back on my feet. I had to get a job, had to get my life situated again. And just in that very short time, I'm talking about a 30-day time period, I was buying and selling, buying and selling, and buying and selling. I was flipping bikes out of my dad's backyard like it was crazy. Some days I was doing $3,000 profit. And I was like, this is insanity. And it was easy money. At least to me, it was easy money because I studied so hard on what makes and models are and all the bikes. I mean, when I saw something at a particular price, I knew if it was a good deal or not. And I studied my craft and I mastered my craft. And I was able to strike while the iron was hot. So I started my dad's backyard, right? And then I naturally had to move it to somewhere else that had a little more space. So I got a storage facility. And that storage facility, I was hustling bikes out of a storage facility. Buy them at an auction, put them in the storage facility, fix them up, and what do you think happened? I got robbed. Not at gunpoint at night, though. They broke open, they cut all the chains, they moved all the inexpensive bikes out of the way, I kept all the expensive ones in the front, and they stole my bikes. And at that point, not all of them, just the ones that mattered, you know, of course. At that point, I didn't have insurance at the time because I was so small. I didn't know any better. It was, you know, I was just selling bikes on the side. You know, kind of the way a lot of businesses start. They just start somewhere, and eventually, once they get cash flow, then they kind of build into a bigger business, maybe get incorporated. And I know it's kind of doing stuff backwards. You know, you should get that stuff done first, but I didn't have insurance at the time. That's what it boiled down to. I literally ate 100% of what they stole. At that particular moment, I had to make a choice. I was at the crossroads, one of the crossroads of my life. The other being if I was going to get out of the Army or not. So that crossroad was, do I continue to sell motorcycles or do I go get a job? That was it. If I went this way and continued to sell motorcycles, I was going to have to jump in the deep end. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Every single dollar I had, this time literally because I just got robbed, I had to find a building, a better building than I was currently using, and I had to get an alarm. I had to get insurance. I had to, pay for the building permits, lease agreements, and all that, and it was going to be very expensive, and I knew that. Or I go get a GIOB like everybody else and probably live paycheck to paycheck for the rest of my life. Obviously, I didn't want to do that. At the time, I was willing to lose everything, so I went with the route with jumping in the deep end, opening up my official motorcycle dealership. It was 500 square feet. It was the corner of a paint shop. I'm not saying that to be funny. I didn't even have a wall that separated the paint shop to my showroom. I didn't have a wall from my showroom to the bikes we were fixing. We had bikes with no wheels and tires and forks sitting up on two stands, just sitting there, possibly dripping oil, next to a pretty bike that we're selling. It made bikes selling them a little bit hard. I wasn't doing financing at the time. I wasn't selling extended warranties at the time. All this stuff that is great money, I didn't know anything about it because, well, nobody holds your hand. In business, nobody will hold your hand and bring you up. Anyways, I went from a 500 square foot shop and I migrated across the street later on to a 2,000 square foot shop that was on a busy road in Wiley, Texas. And that is when my business really started expanding. So much so that it was cut in the middle of the building. It was really 4,000, but it was split down the middle with a wall, 2,000 and then the other 2,000, right? That was being used as a weld shop at the time. When he moved out, I took the advantage of, hey, we're still selling, having a dealership and a service department in one. I could use that as my sales floor and this is a service. Let's go ahead and expand even more. It was only an extra $1,000 a month, and I really figured, hey, that's like selling one bike or not even a bike, potentially. So I said, look, let's just do that. And once I did, it expanded faster than I ever imagined. I mean, faster than I ever imagined. Spending money turned around and made me so much more than I thought it could. So I ran off my 4,000 square foot shop until I got a letter one day from the city. I was renting the building from the city at the time. And I got a letter that said, we're tearing down your building. You need to move. My heart was pretty much smashed because I was in an awesome location. I was even getting a little tight as far as how many bikes I had. We were literally, when we closed the shop door, the big overhead door, I was literally having to tiptoe, literally, on top of the motorcycle seats while they're sitting on their kickstands, about 50 of the bikes, all the way across until I can get to the end where I could jump off and close the door. That's how tight this showroom was at night, because we had to bring them all in. You can't leave motorcycles outside at night. That's just, nobody does that. They're going to get stolen. It's too easy. So at that point I said, okay, I need to buy a big building. And I want to buy it. I don't want to lease it anymore. So I found a church. It was built in, part of it was built in 2004. And it was very undervalued. At least I thought it was. It was so undervalued that I thought it was missing a digit on the price. It was for $400,000. And I go, there's no way. It's 20,000 square feet. It's gorgeous. It's all finished out. It's got like 15 AC units. This place is a mecca. It's 2 stories in the back. It's got its own basketball court. I felt like 50 Cent when I bought this thing. I mean, like, who has their own basketball court? Like, holy cow. I'm a kid. I'm in my 20s at the time. Who has their own basketball court? It doesn't even make sense. I played basketball like one time in it just to say I have my own basketball court, and, you know. But so I ended up buying this building, obviously, because it was so undervalued, and I ran it for about 2 years, and I did awesome. And when I say awesome, we were doing financing, we were selling warranties, we were kicking butt until we weren't. And what I mean is, we were running good, and the only finance company that we were using at the time was for bad credit financing, because we were selling sport bikes to younger kids. And if you went with the good credit people, they wouldn't finance the younger generation. So I could only use one company. I tried other companies, it wouldn't work. They stopped financing everybody in the United States 1 December. To completely December, and they said it'll come back on January 1st, and I was like, for a month, I went from selling 40 bikes a month to like 3. You think I was in the red that month? You better believe it. January came, I said, fine, they're reworking their system. That month is going to tear me up on my taxes, because that's going to screw my entire year. They did it again on January. Now, my January sales are messed up, which is going to mess up my entire year, because that's 1/12 of my sales, which is a big number. So I said, okay, at this point, I can't rely on this company anymore. I can't do it. I called my real estate agent, the one I bought the building from, and I said, hey, Bob, what can I lease this building for? Because I own it. I'm making payments on it. I still owe money, but what can I lease it for? And at the time, my payment was $1,750 a month plus taxes. Taxes were about $1,000 a month. So we're looking at, round it up a little bit, say $3,000 a month. Is where my break-even point is, plus repairs. He came back and he said, I think we could reasonably lease this building for about $9,700 a month. Wait, what? Wait a second. Hold on. Back up. You're telling me I could walk away from this dealership and still make 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 for the math geniuses out there, $6,700 a month plus the principal pay down for doing nothing? So if I quit my job, I'll make $6,700 a month. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I thought about it, and I said, well, that makes all the sense in the world. I'll take all my inventory, I'll sell it all, I'll buy rental properties with it, single family homes, and then I'll use that cash flow, the excess cash flow at that point, because I won't be living on it all, to reinvest in the rental properties and start snowballing it. So, and I'll back up a little bit. The first real rental property I bought for a rental property, not to, have something and then turn it into a rental property later on. The first one I actually bought as a rental property fell in my lap. And it was an employee that was coming under hard times. He owned this house outright. It was inherited to him. He owed nothing on it. He didn't pay his taxes. He didn't pay his taxes, right? So his taxes were $1,000 a year, right? He was many years behind. Plus he was getting loans on it. He had attorney fees. He racked up a nice debt, over $3,000 or $4,000 worth of taxes, right? So I ended up saying, look, if you'll deed me the house, I will clear your name, and then I will buy you an RV of your choice, because he wanted to go to an RV. He wanted something a little smaller. He was for that. He brought that idea to me about the RV, and I said, this is going to work for everybody. Deed the house to me. I'll clear your name. There won't be any debtors coming after you, and then I'll buy the RV that you really like. You showed me online. We agreed to it, and he deeded the house over to me. That was my first rental property. I'm in it with repairs for give or take about $40,000. And today, 2019, it currently rents for $1,100. So $40,000 investment, $1,100 a month. Any investor in the world would jump on that twice. It's an amazing deal by every aspect. So I closed down the shop. I finally did it. And I put 2 good tenants in there, and I ran with it. And I took all the bikes, I sold those, and then I started up a new company. I got rental properties that are all positively cash flowing now. And with the cash flow I have now, I'm going to reinvest into more rental properties, either by using the BRRRR strategy, which we can go over in another video. It's a common strategy used by the Bigger Pockets podcast, which I am regularly listening to. I am now enjoying life. I went out and I bought an RV. We drove to Canada and back. The first month I was financially free. I got my pilot's license. I bought an airplane. I mean, who does that? And I am thoroughly enjoying myself. And I wouldn't be here today telling you my story if I wouldn't have put the ridiculous amounts of hard work that it absolutely requires in order to get here. But when you get here, it is so worth it. Jim Rohn had a famous quote I wrote down, and it says, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're also right. Thanks guys for listening. My name is William Dauria. If you have not already, please like and subscribe for more content coming through this channel. Thank you guys.